Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Nigel Oxley and this is What to Watch, the channel where we review watches, score them out of 100 and then stack them up against each other on the What to Watch leaderboard. To set the scene for today's episode, I want to take you back to the beginning of the summer. Mrs. Oxley and I were making final plans for our wedding and therefore our subsequent honeymoon. Now, for our honeymoon, we booked to go to Ibiza. Now, I've heard anecdotally and firsthand that Ibiza can be a bit of a hotspot for luxury watch thefts. So I needed something new to take along with me that wasn't going to draw unnecessary attention. Let's get into it. My criteria for the new watch was simple. It needed to be less than 40mm, it needed to be less than £1,000, it needed to be just as capable in the pool during the day as it was smart in the evening for nights out, and finally a GMT function. Firstly, because I didn't have a GMT function in the collection at the time, and secondly, as I was travelling abroad, I thought it'd be handy to have. So I came up with three options. The first option was the Christopher Ward C63 GMT, which unfortunately was out of stock at the time. Secondly, I came up with the Laurier Hyperion, which again was out of stock at the time. So I settled on this Steinhart Ocean 39 Vintage GMT, which fortunately was in stock at the time. So I ordered it and off on my honeymoon I went. So that's enough of my face for now. You've not come to see me, you've come to see the watch. Let's have a look at our first category. It's dimensions and comfort. Now the watch measures 39mm across, so it fit my criteria at under 40mm. It's 12.5mm tall, which isn't bad I don't think for a GMT watch. I measured this one at 47mm lug tip to lug tip, so it's nice and comfortable for my 6¼ inch wrist. Now as you can see, the case profile is actually curved, but if you look at it from the side, the case back actually does protrude somewhat. Now the watch does have a tendency because of that to sit on top of the wrist rather than snugly fitting around it, but that's not too much of an issue for me because of the very compact lug to lug width. So it gets a 9 out of 10 for comfort and dimensions. Category 2 is case, bezel and crystal. This is also worth 10 points. There's very simple finishing to the case, brushed on the top and polished on the side. It's 316L stainless steel throughout with no real high polish anywhere, giving it a real tool watch feel. The bezel is steel and fixed, so only 2 time zones can be tracked here, not like 3 with a GMT with a rotating 24-hour bezel. The crystal is flat sapphire. Now there is some, but not much anti-reflective coating on there. I must admit that from some angles the light bounces right off it and it makes the dial and hands difficult to see. And there's an engraved image to the rear of the case. I'm very impressed with the 300 meters of water resistance here, which gave me 100% peace of mind on my honeymoon whilst I was wearing it mainly at the swim up bar. 6 out of 10. Category 3 is dial and hands. Now there's 2 dial options you can get with this watch. There's the faux patina version and then there's this version without it. I went for this version as my personal preference is that I want my watches to age themselves and not have them looking old from new, if you know what I mean. But that's just my personal preference. As you can see, it's flat black with the indices printed on, no applied anything on here. Simple fence post hour and minute hand, a lollipop style second hand, and then a very bright, very orange GMT hand that reaches all the way out to the 24-hour bezel. Again, a very tooly feel to this. Another 6 out of 10. We'll move on to the next category. It's bracelet and clasp. Now I'll start off here with the positives. The dimensions of the bracelet and clasp are great. 20mm lug width tapering down to 16mm at the clasp, so it does feel quite comfortable on the wrist. However, that's where the positives end, I'm afraid. Firstly, the bracelet and the clasp do feel a bit cheap for a watch of this price. It does feel awfully rattly. Let me demonstrate. The clasp doesn't feel great either. It's a shame because the rest of this watch feels like it's built to last, but sadly it's let down by this category. Unless the clasp is perfectly lined up, it doesn't push in and it just makes the watch feel a little bit cheap. Unfortunately, it's 4 out of 10 for bracelet and clasp. Category 5 is movement. Not bad at all here. It's a Swiss-made ETA 2893-2 movement with a GMT function. Albeit not a true GMT function like you get on a Rolex GMT Master for instance, it has a date function, a 42-hour power reserve, Now, this movement or versions of it has been widely used for many brands over the years, including Breitling, Glycine, Panerai, Ball, Zinn, IWC and Tag Heuer, all of which are not available anywhere near this price. 8 out of 10. Value for money is category 6. I paid retail for this watch. The version in the 39mm without the faux patina is only available through an online boutique based out of Germany called Olco Watches. If you look at the website, it's just under €500 without the VAT. Depending on where you are, you will have to pay this in one form or another or import duty. On top of that, I think including the import bill I got, my total bill was around €600. I was very lucky here, as other than the day I happened to be looking for the watch, I've never seen them in stock. So I imagine if I wanted to move this on, I would only lose a few €100 or so. The watch is well built. I wore this for a week non-stop and got it caked in sun cream and smacked it off the side of the pool countless times, and after a quick rinse when I got it home, it was as good as new. It has a movement which isn't out of place in some luxury brand models, 4 or 5 times the price. It does lose a mark though for that less than satisfactory bracelet and clasp that I should say would be better on a watch of this price, so I would say the value for money is about right. It's a 9 out of 10. Category 7 is design. Oh dear, this isn't good. And we get to the elephant in the room. I must admit, I'm not a massive fan when it comes to copying someone else's homework. The design team at Steinhart have obviously had the tracing paper out with this one. At least it's a copy of a watch which is no longer in production and you can't buy anymore, which certainly makes it more comfortable for me. Let's have a look at the comparison for the Rolex Explorer 2 that it's based on. Other than replacing the Rolex logo with their own and changing the hand slightly, I can't give them any points for design at all. 2 out of 10. Category 8 is worth 15 points, it's brand and heritage. Now, Steinhart is a relatively short history, only being founded in 2001. However, since then, it has quickly gained an excellent reputation for making very good quality affordable watches. All its watches are assembled in Germany, a country well known for its manufacturing and precision engineering. All the movements are Swiss, and they're currently working on their own in-house offering. I suspect a bright future ahead for this brand. Short history, yes. Big reputation, yes. I give it a 10 out of 15. Our last category is grim factor, again worth 15 points. Like I said earlier, I bought this watch to take away with me, to not worry about it getting stolen or damaged, but it did feel special enough to wear for dinner in the evening, rugged enough that I didn't have to worry about it during the day. It did the job I bought it for perfectly. I've even been wearing it at home at the weekends doing DIY jobs or working in the garden. It's definitely a tool watch in every sense of the word. But did it make me smile? Does it make me feel special when I'm wearing it? The answer to that is yes, a little. Maybe because it was new, or maybe because of the very obvious nod to the Rolex it's clearly based on. Either way, it gets an 8 out of 15. So, after some totting up, the Ocean 39 Vintage GMT gets 67 out of 100. Only let down, I fear, by the lack of any real original design and that poor rattly bracelet. Let's have a look where that puts it on the What to Watch leaderboard. Currently it sits there at the bottom, but note the two above it are almost 10 times the price, so not a bad effort at all. What I'd like to see is how this watch stacks up against other watches in a similar price category when they get reviewed on the channel. I fear it'll be quite high. Let me know in the comments what you agree with and what you disagree with. I'd love to hear your thoughts on today's episode. Thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss anything upcoming. And remember, if you're ever struggling for what to watch, just keep an eye out for another one of my episodes. See you next time.